Welcome to Voiceover, Movies That Move Us. I'm your host, Heather Bigley, and I talk to people about the movies that made a mark, that led to cinematic epiphanies. And it's not always the movie you'd expect. Today, we're talking about Merchant and Ivory's 1985 Room with a View, an adaptation of E.M. Forster's 1908 novel, starring an impossibly young Helena Bonham Carter as a girl on the cusp of adulthood in Edwardian England. She travels with her cousin to Italy and on her return to England finds herself deciding between two young men. One is an upper-class sophisticate, Antwerp, played deliciously by Daniel Day-Lewis. The other is a romantic working man, his last name is Emerson, played by Julian Sands. The film was nominated for 8 Oscars and won for Adapted Screenplay, Art Direction, and Costume Design. For a few decades, Merchant and Ivory represented classy romantic British film, even though Ismail Merchant was Indian and James Ivory was from the U.S. They met, or had met, in the nebula of the NYU film scene. Before Room with a View, they had made over 20 films, most in India and some of them documentaries, several based on the novels of Ruth Prower Jabvala, who was raised in Germany, and who wrote the screenplays of half the films they made in the 44 years the company was together. Our guest today is Lisa Valentine Clark, writer, comic, actor, and host of The Lisa Show. We'll be talking through all kinds of plot points, so if spoilers make you allergic, come back after you've watched the film. And remember to stick around after the convo for some recommendations. You recommend this film to people.
I do.
So what is it that you want them to experience when they're watching it?
It's a simple story, right? A young girl travels abroad trying to find out who she is, and her life begins. It's a story that anybody can relate to, I think, because we all grow older. That is the universal experience. Secondarily, it's just so beautifully made. The costumes, the cinematography, the acting, the countryside.
The humor.
The humor.
It's
the
funny.
Characters, all of it has everything. It's just so beautiful and beautifully well done. So then there's that artistic element.
I have to say, when I first saw this film, I was probably, 22. And I didn't connect with it because she was having this fantastic love affair. And she was traveling, and nothing in my life was like that. I still saw, falling in love as a complete fantasy.
Okay.
I'd never had the experience of a man falling in love with me, so I was just like, I don't know what planet she lives on, but it's not the same planet I live on.
How is this happening? Yeah.
Yeah. Can she tell me the tips and tricks, because I don't get this. But you, what was your experience?
Well, I saw this movie at a time in my life when I was falling in love. So how about that?
Yeah.
And, young love, which would eventually be my husband, my late husband. And so being introduced to this movie at that time in my life, it just seemed pretty magical. That's probably a lot of it, because it idealized this feeling of love in my head in a visual medium, where it just feels like the birds are singing and the rolling green hills and everyone is, and this is what it's
Shafts
about.
of life.
Yes.
Hitting just at the right place.
Right. And fields of gold. And it's just kind of in your mind. Yeah, this is how it is for everyone. The story of generations. That connection is in my mind. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, but also it's connecting you to the universal experience and saying to you, don't we all deserve this? Mm-hmm. I think that's the romance of it.
I do too. And the idea that there are things that make sense in societies and there are things that don't, that either impede or add to this idea of love and romance and feeling like you can be who you want to be with this person. And it just gave a visual representation of that in a very extreme situation, right? In a foreign country, in a time that is far removed from our modern day, but it just emphasizes the universality of it all.
We should say the movie has two distinct parts, Italy
Yes.
and England.
Yep.
And when she goes back to England, like, I think you're supposed to feel this way. You're just crushed. Like,
Yeah.
oh.
Oh, she's back there.
Even though there's this lovely image, like they have windy corners and there's a horse just sort of galloping through the field, and you're like, okay, it has charm, it has beauty, but then we introduce Daniel Day-Lewis doing a very great job being an utter stick in the mud.
I want to ask you something that I have never asked before.
What, Cecil? Yes?
Up to now, I have never kissed you.
No. You haven't.
May I now?
Well, of course you may, Cecil. You might before. I can't run at you, you know.
Seriously, boy, his performance, especially having now seen him in so many amazing films since that, to go back and be like, oh, he's incredible, because this is, just such a memorable character of someone who is so committed to the rules of engagement in society and who is void of, it feels, feeling and passion and love, but it is all very logical and
also a snob. It actually is this young man character I think we've all run into. Like, you're not quite cool enough to hang out with me, but I'm going to teach you the ways, if you're lucky.
Don't worry, I've got it all taken care of. I will mansplain all of the rules and everything that's going on, you little pet. And very condescending, but in a way that has really good manners.
I have no profession. My attitude, quite an indefensible one, is that so long as I'm no trouble to anyone, I have the right to do as I like. It is, I dare say, an example of my decadence.
You're very fortunate.
Well, and he's like such the opposite of George, the other love interest, who I have to say is practically mute.
I know. I didn't realize that until like a second watching, after a while. I'm like, there really isn't a lot. And it sort of adds, and I didn't realize this the first time, to the brooding. That like, what does it all mean? What does life mean? And I want all this big, passionate, loud life, but I'm internalizing, I'm observing it. Maybe there isn't a place for me, or maybe this isn't for me.
Something tremendous has happened.
Well, thank you. Again. How quickly these accidents do happen. And then one returns to the old life.
I don't. I mean, something's happened to me. And to you.
Well, in fact, so much so that when he kisses her the first time, I'm like, oh,
you liked her? We would never have known. It's only been like in front of other people. It hasn't been these big declarations of love. And it's so foreign to how we are now, right? Like, it's so foreign to how people court each other or engage with the opposite sex or talk about love. It's like, you need to really talk about all of these things and know someone for all these seasons and see them and go on a road trip and see them in all the, different elements. And don't forget to ask about finance. Like, it's the exact opposite of all the things that
we do today.
We do today. Which
hyper articulated, this is who I am and this is what I want and this is how I see you in my life. And he's just like, let me fall all over you in a field of flowers. And I don't know that I've kissed anyone before. Let me see how it works.
Let me just grab you, and then you kind of walk off in a daze, and I do too. It's it's not as romantic now watching it as it felt the first time that I watched it in my 20s.
Well, because you've kissed and kissed well. I mean, that's the.
You know what? I have. And thank you. Thank you for
You're
assuming that.
I mean, you have 5 children. I'm going to assume.
There was some kissing involved. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the thing: is now watching it at this age, within the first 10 minutes, I was in tears. And here's who I identified with.
Oh.
I identified with Mr. Emerson because,
I love this.
okay, so let's set the scene.
Please.
It's Lucy Honeychurch. What a great name
The best name.
for a character.
If I were making an improvisational character on stage, it would seem a little heavy-handed, but that is the name I'd choose.
And we'd know so much immediately. And she's with her cousin Charlotte, played by Maggie Smith. And Lucy Honeychurch is played by Helena Bonham Carter, who is only 19 when she shoots this. And you can see how young she is. It's actually kind of refreshing after growing up on Beverly Hills 90210.
Yeah.
Everybody's 30 playing 17.
Yeah. And so angularly cut.
Yes.
It's soft and childlike almost.
No, I think I'll go out.
Alone? Is that wise, Miss Honeychurch?
To be wise, one might have stayed at home at Summer Street. I'll not go far. I promise.
Right. She's in that transition period of moving from girlhood to womanhood, and she looks so unexperienced and so young. And then there's Maggie Smith, who is she's not an unattractive woman.
Yeah.
But of course, they've costumed her so that she is the quintessential spinster, and her hair's just a little too tight, and she's just a little too formal. They're in this dining room in a pensione in Florence trying to make friends. And there's Mr. Emerson being just so gauche and just so out of bounds by offering them, we have a room with a view. You should have the room with a view.
We have no view.
I have a view. I have a view, so does George. My son George here. You can have our rooms, and we'll have yours. We can change.
And he's so passionate about it.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, cousin Charlotte is outraged.
What an impossible person.
He meant to be kind.
Oh, please, leave this to me. I know how to deal with these people.
Charlotte, you dealt rudely. You dealt wrongly.
I am the chaperone to my young cousin Lucy, and it would be a serious thing if I were to put her under an obligation to people of whom we know nothing.
Can you imagine? He is offering this? Yeah, her outrage is such comedy to me. I love it so much because she's feigning in order to perform that she understands the propriety. And she's dying to have the room with the view.
Yes. Yes. But he says this line, I wrote it down. Well, he says a couple lines. One is, these niceties contravene common sense, which I loved. When we let social expectation get in the way of actually doing what makes the most sense, why would we do that? And then he has this thing where he's tapping his heart and he says, here is where the birds sing. Here is where the sky is blue.
It's ridiculous, these niceties. They go against common sense. Every kind of sense. I don't care what I see outside. My vision is within. Here is where the birds sing. Here is where the sky is blue.
And that, of course, is when I was like, oh, and the tears started.
Right. It's like poetry right from the beginning. And I think this is what I miss the most in movies now. Now I sound like that lady, but I don't care. I am that lady. I feel like to begin a film, a visual medium like that with such beautiful words, just right out the get-go, is such a more interesting way to capture my attention, clearly your attention as well, to say, oh, I know what this film like what ride we're going to go on, because they tell you right at the beginning, but it's so subtle. I missed it the first time. I missed it when I was in my 20s, but now it's the same thing. Like as soon as it started and you see the scene and this opening conversation and you hear those words where he's like, I'm just going to show you who I am. And he's tapping his heart. I'm just like getting teary, like, yes. And I'm there with you. Like, yes, show me your world. I'm very inspired by that.
And then we have this very sweet scene where we've heard one of the women at the table say how much she likes cornflowers.
I find the cornflower the most delightful of flowers. Don't you, Miss Lavish?
And there's Mr. Emerson and his son having gathered all these flowers, and they're like go into their room and they decorate. It's just this man and his son and these older women, and they look so pleased.
Well, you said you like cornflowers.
So we brought you cornflowers.
Oh, kind.
They have your type of flowers. They have your personality. I'd like to see them in your hair.
Oh,
There are no jewels more becoming to a lady.
You know,
You're so just delighted by that. I was looking at the older women and I just thought, what a great way to show their experience in just a little snippet, again, with no dialogue, just to see how delighted they are of what it means to sort of age and be traveling on your own. And you're not the focus of the story. But then to be highlighted in that in such a way, it parallels what it's like in life. We always highlight the young ingenue who's coming up and falling in love. That's the story that we follow. But what about those acts of like just pure joy and bliss that they're bringing, these seemingly forgettable side characters, that background actors, if you will. And the cornflower scene, like that is one of the scenes that just like stays with you.
I thought it was, and again, I was in tears, like, like the simple things we can do for people, which I would normally poo-poo. If I'm in a Sunday school class and someone says, you know how we can really help people?
Yeah.
We can smile for them. I'd be like, we are not doing enough. But in this moment, in this film,
it just seems like everything, doesn't it? It's so interesting to me because it's such an intentional way to introduce this father and son. Like, these are the kinds of people that they are. They talk about birds and poetry. They put flowers in the middle of these beds, but in a way where they're playful with each other because it's just a nice thing to do. And it's something that they see and think. That says so much about their background, so much about their relationship, what their intentions are. You're rooting for them right from the get-go at the beginning of the story.
And the film will eventually end with Mr. Emerson saying the thing that will allow Lucy Honeychurch to marry his son.
But I've got to go to Greece now. I mean, the ticket's bought and everything. When's it possible?
There's only one thing impossible. That's to love and to part.
Lucy!
You love George. You love the boy body and soul as he loves you.
But of course I do. What did you all think?
Even though he's going to disappear from the movie and we are going to follow the young lovers and that's going to be the story, it's really him stepping in and basically saying, this doesn't make sense. You're in love with him. Just be in love with him. That's fine. And she has to fight against all this stuff. So seeing it again for me at this age, the thing that I was caught up with most was that young experience of travel, like being able to travel and what an education it is. And that for me just spoke really powerfully to my younger self. Like I did eventually get to travel. I did eventually get to see the world and be in a place where I didn't speak the language and where I was a little terrified, but everything around me is beautiful and strange. And I feel like the film really captures that well.
I really feel like it brought back so many memories when I watched it for the first time, but even more so now. I flew to Paris to visit a friend from high school who was living abroad for that year. Her father was working for the embassy. And it was just the most romantic, idealized trip in the sense that I was 17 and I had never traveled outside the country, and I went to Paris. And I went with my friend who was showing me around like a local. She spoke fluent French. I did not. She knew how to get around really easily. I did not. And I just was mesmerized by everything and the really like aggressive men and the beautiful art and the freedom, the contrast between the city and the touristy parts and the countryside. Like I experienced that at a young age, and it was so fun, but so eye-opening. And I remember very like idealistically flying home and thinking, well, I'm different now. I see the world now as it is, and I'm different. I felt like I was different, and I was like, there is a whole big world out there that is bigger than just Lincoln, Nebraska, like where I just grew up. And it really was a turning point in my life. Seeing this movie just reminded me of what it is like to travel. Like when she goes to the plaza and she sees such violence and in the same breath of just like the most glorious art, just that contrast.
Yeah.
And you can see the look on her face, and she's, she faints, but she wants to be strong. I felt like, dramatically, like, I know what that feels like, even though I've never had somebody murdered in front of me, but it feels like I did. I just liked that contrast and that experience.
Yes. That scene is really well done, shot in I feel like a very different manner. There's like handheld camera. We kind of are no longer in this like, oh, we're going to do close-ups on the star, but it's much more like, let's see the masses of people moving through this space, and then this violence breaks out between two people who
don't know what's going on. Yeah. And we see it from her perspective too, up close, as we are watching her real reaction too. It's different from the rest, shot by shot, different from the rest of the film.
And that's when, of course, George can step in and be kind to her. I mean, in some ways, it's a trope, right? He's going to rescue her.
You're not fit enough to go home alone.
Yes, I am. Thank you very much.
No, you're not.
But I had rather go...
Then I don't get the photographs. Besides, that way you'd have to fly over the wall. Now, please, sit down and don't move till I come back.
But at the same time, it really is him being kind, caring for her, making sure she's okay. Again, telling her she's silly because she's like, well, I can't be beholden to this man. I've got to run away.
I'm going to walk
he's like,
by and he's like, no, you're not. No.
Yeah. And then, of course, this ridiculous carriage ride they take with the two Parsons.
So weird.
Yes. Italy, for me, is like the best part of the film.
Yeah.
And so, again, you have that experience of when they go back to England going,
Yeah, and you can feel it with her, too, through her perspective. And I love the through line of watching her play the piano in Italy and watching her play piano in England to show, England, especially in that time, very proper. There's things you do, you don't, even in your own home. Like, I feel like her emotions get to be center stage on that piano. That's where she can kind of hide, but also express herself, ironically.
There's that great line from who I'm going to refer to as the sensual parson.
As you should. He's like, hey.
How do you do? How do you do?
I've heard from Mother you're to be our vicar.
Yes. I move into the rector at Summer Street in June.
I just feel like he's so just like, I'm going to tell you what it really is. And I always kind of think, like, is he from our day? Like, is he a time traveler? Yeah.
Well, he's hilarious because, one, it's the Church of England. There's no idea of, like, you don't smoke or you don't drink. Like, one should imbibe. Right. Why deny oneself the pleasures of the life? And he's also just a slightly bit stout. And so you know that he's probably a connoisseur of food as well. And he's there to help the little old biddies make their way through Italy.
Yes, he is. You're just like, what are you doing here? Who are you? Yeah.
Exactly. But he's going to listen to her play in Italy and say, I'm approximating here, but
Yeah.
if at some time she ever lives the way she plays the piano, then that's going to be something to behold.
Yeah.
May I say something rather daring?
Oh, Mr. Beebe, you sound like Miss Lavish. Don't say you're writing a novel too.
If I were, you would be my heroine. And I should write, if Miss Honeychurch ever takes to live as she plays, it will be very exciting, both for us and for her.
I love this idea of her character where she doesn't fully know who she is.
No.
I don't think we all fully know who we are till much later. But this is a place where she can express and experiment and try on all of these emotions and maybe get out some of those emotions that aren't necessarily appropriate for her in her society as a young girl.
You'll leave at once. Now.
Lucy.
No! I will not listen to one more word!
My dears, do stop.
Haven't you done enough? Don't interfere again.
I know. It's another reason why I like this movie so much is because this is where she's literally working it out and thinking about who she is and sort of meditative in a way. It's such a beautiful way of recognizing that even in all of these like different expectations that people have for her life and how it's supposed to go, she really does, you can tell, has this thoughtfulness of she wants to know. And those things can't be rushed. A lot of people, especially that age, 19, 20, 21, they put on a performance of this is how I am, but you don't know because you don't have a lot of experience. You only have your own little experience.
There's this moment when, so she's broken up with Cecil. She won't admit to herself that she loves George. So she decides she's going to Greece. And then she's riding in the carriage with her mother. And I don't have children, so this hits me a little different. But she says this thing about, I'm just going to live my life.
Of course I'm not tired of Windy Corner. But as we're talking about it, I may as well say that in the future I shall want to come up to London more. I might even share a flat for a little with some other girl. You see, I come into my money next year.
To mess about with typewriters and latchkeys and call it work.
And her mom's like in tears. And she's like, I can't believe how rude you're being. And then, she kind of backs off. And I just thought, oh, that's such a true moment. Again, she's trying things on.
Yeah, she's just trying it out. And it reminds me of I used to say things like that to my mom. Like, what if I just did this? And and I was just thinking out loud of all the things that I could do. And she would never really get flapped up about it or anything. Like, she would just be like, okay, really? You're going to do that? You're going to move good, great. Like anything was possible. And what I liked about that scene, though, in the carriage, too, is that it really added to the pressures that she's feeling and why she thinks that she needs to, just say the things, because you can sense that restlessness.
I actually love that. I feel like there are so many movies, especially today, where we kind of assign the young heroine, well, you already know everything.
Yeah.
My example of this would be, I don't know if you ever saw Real Women Have Curves with America Ferrera right at the beginning of her career.
Yeah.
It's a great film, but my problem with it is that the character that America Ferrera plays already knows everything. You can't teach her a darn thing. And it's not even ironic. Look, she kind of has things to learn. It's like, nope, she got it. And she just needs to get out of this family so that she can go live her real life.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because I feel that we've overcorrected in the sense of, we've had this story of damsel in distress. And so now we've overcorrected, and there's almost only one way that a heroine can be. And she just has to be strong and sarcastic and know who she is, and she's going to tell everybody what that's like. And somehow we have equated the innocence of not knowing who you are as such a moral failing when it's just part of human development. Like, we don't always know that. And taking the time to quietly discover it and observe is a quiet kind of strength that's different than one that we see in modern cinema, for sure. She is naive. She is inexperienced. She is innocent, but she's not a fool. You know,
Right.
she's not a fool. She is observing and she's thinking and she's internalizing a lot of it. And then she does, in the end, make a bold choice and own it in a strong way.
I'm sorry, Cecil, I can't marry you in one day. You'll thank me for saying so. We're too different.
But I love you. And I did think you loved me.
I did not. I thought I did at first. I'm sorry.
But it's just not a stereotypically, like, loud.
And the learning was, in some ways, it was trusting herself and allowing herself to do the thing that she wanted, which I think is what we hear in movies all the time now, that you're supposed to follow your dreams, which I would say we've, maybe not all the time. Let's not always follow all our dreams.
Don't follow all the dreams. Yeah. That's my
Make a
motherly
decision.
advice.
Yes. As a former high school teacher, I found myself in the position of going, no.
Do you have any other dreams? What other dreams do you have?
It's so interesting, though, female relationships in the film.
Yeah.
Like, we have the sisters Allen. They're the ones who receive the gift of the flowers. We have Charlotte. Actually, one of my favorite little moments when they're in Italy is when Charlotte and Miss Lavish are friends and they're sitting on the hillside together and they're talking scandal about, you know, single women who marry younger men here in Italy. And is that maybe a possibility for one of us?
Do that.
You know?
Yeah.
And they kind of send her off because the older women want to have a chat.
Very well. I shall go and find Mr. B.
Oh, do, dear. Yes, he will be so pleased. And did she really marry this Italian?
In the church of Monteriano. A youth. 10 years younger than herself.
Eleanor.
We often get in film made by men, women like biting at each other. We get that a lot. It's rare that we get women sort of enjoying each other and loving each other in this very collegial way.
Yeah, and I like that slice of life too. They don't get their own movie. They don't get their own story. And yet that experience, especially if you've experienced it and you're in it, you just think, oh yeah, why doesn't anybody tell that? That's pretty interesting too. In a movie that has so many of those like little windows, and it's a reminder too, a really great filmmaker will make sure that there's no wasted characters. There's no wasted dialogue. There's no wasted scene. That all of it is contributing to the world or the landscape, but it's giving you so many gems, so many looks into other like little stories like 3D Rama or something like that.
So this is my filmy question for you, which I didn't give you any time to think about. I think of this as cinema aimed at women. There was a time when that seemed like an insult. Like, oh, it's a chick flick. Oh, it's a rom-com. Oh, it's there's something dismissive in how we talk about films made for women. But I do have to point out that historically, women were the primary audience for Hollywood up until the 1970s. Like, movies were made for women.
Yeah.
And then they expected women to, like, bring their husbands and their kids to the movies later and see these films multiple times. This seems like a film made for women in, like, the best way.
Yeah. It's not an insult. Yeah.
So what do you think about that idea of there are films for women, there are films for men, that we're like sort of a target market, except nobody makes movies for us. Once in a while we get a Mamma Mia these days.
Sure.
But there's not really an attempt to like get us to the theaters any longer.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Again, I think in this like idea of overcorrecting, I think now so much of film, especially popular film, is aimed at shock, the novelty of it, instead of what I think is the fundamentals of good filmmaking, which is just like telling an interesting new is the wrong word, but maybe old story, because there's only how many stories? 6 or 7 stories,
Yeah.
We can go down that road. But in a novel way and an interesting, compelling way. But I agree with your assessment that like most people would say, oh, that may be aimed at women, but in the best ways. In a similar way that people feel like Jane Austen is just for women and not for men and women. The characteristics that I feel like that are aimed towards women, either in literature or in film, is interesting, engaging dialogue, fascinating characters and character studies that will deal with family, home, hearth relationships instead of action. And so if you have those 3 elements and that's considered for women, I think we should be making more female directed films. But what I think is the wonderful thing about any creative act and any art form is that it transcends that. Like no matter what the motivation was for, whether it was to market to women or to say something, look what it created though. This really great film. I saw this film like with my late husband who was a theater director. We loved going to Merchant and Ivory films. We enjoyed that together. And like my kids would love that, and I've got all the genders in my house. Yeah, I love the idea of having a film be sort of a radical kick against that idea of movie is for men or for women.
Right.
I think that's such a silly thing, but I do recognize that it's a thing.
I'm trying to think, who would I have seen this film with?
Would you have gone with, women?
I feel like I probably saw it on this college campus at the varsity, and they would have cut out the scene with the naked pond men.
Are you bathing, Mr. Beebe? Don't be shy.
Why not?
Which is a great scene. It's not sexual nudity. Nudity is so
human.
It's so human. It's so universal.
I will say, as a person who was a film major and like 75% of the major was made up of men.
Yeah.
And when you think about how the film canon was put together, it's very male critic for the most part. I saw a lot of movies that were aimed at men and had male sensibilities in them. I think that's part of the reason that when I was watching this film, I remained unimpressed by it the first time, because I'd been coached into like a good film is a male film. And this was exploring female agency and autonomy and emotion. And so I was kind of like, I'm not sure what to do with this.
That's fascinating to me.
And now as an adult woman who has spent a long time saying, women are pretty awesome and courageous and brave and smart, and we should be thinking more about their experiences. Now the film speaks to me in a whole different way.
Oh, I would love to know too what those nuggets of like truth that came through the second time about the female experience stood out to you.
The female friendship. How, as a young woman, do you become part of the society of women? She's renegotiating her relationship with her mother, as funny and as catty and weird as it is.
Yeah.
She's renegotiating her relationship with Charlotte. Like, Charlotte's supposed to be her chaperone, but in many ways she's trying to say, look, I'm going to be an adult, or I am an adult, and I should be allowed to explore. And the whole conversation that she and Charlotte have after the kiss, which is in itself hilarious.
So funny. I didn't realize how funny it was.
And as I've said before, I am to blame.
I wouldn't want Mother to think so.
She will think so, if you tell her.
I shall never speak of it, either to Mother or to anyone.
We'll both be as silent as the grave.
We shouldn't tell anyone because,
I'm going to get in trouble. And
I think one of the most delightful plot points is the fact that she then tells Miss Lavish about the kiss, but we don't find it out until it's published in Miss Lavish's novel and gets read aloud by Cecil.
And she wandered as though in a dream through the wavering golden sea of barley touched with crimson stains of poppies. All unobserved he came to her. Isn't it immortal? There came from his lips no wordy protestation such as formal lovers use.
No eloquence was his, nor did he suffer from the lack of it. He simply enfolded her in his manly arms.
Like, that is just genius.
It
plot
really
point.
is. It's so great and it's so well done and it's such a patient way to tell a story and to get it out. Again, it makes me so frustrated now with what is considered like a chick flick or what's considered with like a female-driven romance story now, when there could be so many subtle things that play in and out of what's appropriate and what's not in a society and who's privy to the information. And now it just feels like everybody knows, and then this embarrassing things happen, and then it's done. Like, it's just not as layered, and I just really appreciate the art form of the weaving in and out, and that we don't get to find out stuff until the end. It's very patient, and I know how this makes me sound. They don't make movies like this anymore. I do think that, of like, it has all of these kinds of elements in one, and this is what a movie could be.
Wow. Get Lisa to confer on your next script. The way she talks about story and filmmaking is so instructive and reveals so much professional experience. I love that this movie reminds Lisa of falling in love with her husband and that it remains a cherished artifact of their life together. Film can work as a visceral way to relive the important emotions of another time in your life. It's why so many of us are drawn to rewatching our favorites. For me, watching this film this time, I was reminded of a trip I took to Paris after I graduated from college. I had a friend living there, and she let me sleep on her couch for a couple months. I had very little money, and I remember feeling excited that I could explore this legendary city, but also scared and alone. My friend worked a real job. I actually rarely saw her, and I spent every day walking through that city, getting lost in the different neighborhoods, and then trying to find myself in my writing. One day, I remember having a few francs on a phone card, and I called a friend back in the States just to connect with someone who knew me. I was in a glass telephone cabinet or cabine, surrounded by dozens of other telephone cabines, watching pigeons circle and regroup and then fly away again as cars dashed by. My friend was half asleep, and when she realized who was on the phone, she broke out into Joni Mitchell's California, which starts with the lyric, "Sitting in a park in Paris, France." It took me a while to realize I was crying. I was so happy and so sad at the same time to be young and responsible for myself on a great adventure. I've never seen a film that captured that confluence of emotions so well as Room with a View. Okay, well, how about some recommendations? If you're still interested in costume dramas, and why wouldn't you be, you might also try Gillian Armstrong's 1979 My Brilliant Career, starring the always excellent Judy Davis as a young woman who aspires to become a writer. It parallels Room with a View in its look backward to another time when women's choices were narrowly prescribed at a very young age, but it's set in Australia, and the heat, the dryness, the volatile colonial economy, and the main character's determination to achieve her career goals are in opposition to Room with a View's sumptuous romance. It's a nice inverted mirror to help you understand other female experiences of about the same time. Two movies you should probably watch together about strangers in strange lands. Peter Weir's 1991 Green Card with Gerard Depardieu and Andie MacDowell paired with Lawrence Kasdan's 1995 French Kiss with Meg Ryan and Kevin Kline. Peter Weir is an Australian legend known for Picnic at Hanging Rock and Gallipoli. Before his Hollywood career, that included Witness, Dead Poets Society, and The Truman Show. Green Card is about a woman who wants a great New York apartment from a co-op board that only rents to married couples, and a Frenchman who needs to extend his legal stay in the U.S. The movie is a send-up of New York society and American proprieties from the perspective of a Gallic cynic. This plays nicely with French Kiss about a jilted American headed to France to reclaim her fiancé. She loses her luggage and is thrown out of her Paris hotel and becomes embroiled with a con artist. It's another send-up of American proprieties, but this time from Americans and the director who brought you The Big Chill, Silverado, and Body Heat. The costume designer should have won multiple awards for what she creates with Ryan's increasingly limited clothing choices. I quote this movie all the time. Lactose intolerance. Something I say to myself, folks. Okay, I hope that sends you on your way and you enjoy a few movies this week. Voiceover is edited by Aaliyah Alexander and is a production of BYU Radio. I'm your host, Heather Bigley.